So good morning everyone. I am Saurabh Bhattacharjee, student coordinator and core team member of History Society and your compare for this session. So this session is jointly organized by History Society and Think India. It's been a long hiatus, 6 to 7 months, so I'm meeting after that. Since its inception in 2022, History Society has organized around 20 talk sessions and 4 movie screenings on different subjects, including civilizational history, archaeology, freedom struggle, etc. Think India is also a students' forum which is working to bring together intellectual human resources to infuse a nation-first attitude in them. I would like to express our gratitude to our faculty coordinator, all the faculty advisors, and student volunteers for their constant engagement. Today we are very delighted to have none other than Shri Vivek Agnihotri with us. Please give a big round of applause for him. I thank our faculty advisors to help us organize this session in a very short notice. Vivek ji is an Indian director. He is a writer and producer with versatile interests in Indian history. He is a member of Indian Central Board of Film Certification. He is also currently a cultural representative of Indian cinema at the Indian Council for Cultural Relations. One of his works, the Tashkent Files, it won the National Film Award for Best Screenplay in the Dialogues division. The Kashmir Files was emerged as one of the highest grossing films in 2022. It earned him the Nargis Dutt Award for Best Feature Film on National Integration. One of his other works, the Vaccine War, it was a medical drama film. It focused on the development of Covaxin during the pandemic times. It mustered critical acclaim. His latest release, the much talked about, the Bengal Files, is a hard-hitting factual portrayal of the mayhem following Direct Action Day in undivided Bengal. I request our faculty coordinator, Professor Jishnu Bhattacharya, and our faculty advisor, Professor Arnab Bhattacharya, to come to the stage, and also the guest speaker, Vivek Agnihotri, for him to be presented a welcome memento from History Society and Think India's side. So today's session will throw light on the first-hand experiences of the director himself while doing the background researches for various movies and documentaries. As you all get seated and the session starts, our volunteers will be ready with small paper sheets in which you can write down the questions that you would like to ask. Please keep the questions completely apolitical and non-disrespectful. Please hand over the sheet to the nearest volunteer once you are done writing the questions. So I request Vivek ji now to grace the stage.
Good morning, everyone. When I reached here, I reached a couple of minutes before my scheduled time. This hall was empty. There were just few organizers and me. And after that, after 10 minutes when I stood up and looked back, it was house full. What can be better sight for a film director than so many people attending? But this is also the journey of my life as a filmmaker. All these projects which I have made, I started alone with few people organizing them with me, and slowly, जिसे हिंदी में कहते हैं कारवां बनता गया. So thank you for coming on a Sunday morning. I know it was last minute. I was coming here for the screening of my film last night. Then Saurabh called me and he said, we want you to come here, and I agreed because I never ever, as a principal, I never say no to any student or any teaching organization. Because the reason is, A, I am son of a professor and I am also a student, I am still learning. But the most important reason is that when I was studying, at that time, we believed whatever was told to us. And this was not bad, because in our culture we were taught कि अगर गुरु, भगवान और पेरेंट्स खड़े हैं तो सबसे पहले किसके पाँव छूने चाहिए? And we say गुरु के पाँव छूने चाहिए. I came from that kind of upbringing, those kind of values. But then lots of people started taking advantage of that. Not every teacher was a guru. There were teachers who were paid salary. In India, there were a lot of scarcity, and the most difficult life, I don't know about now, I believe now teachers and professors are paid a lot. I know my father was head of department and he was paid 800 rupees a month. And so we were in lower middle class. And teachers slowly stopped getting respect, slowly they were not part of the growing, upward moving economic system of the society. So maybe because of that reason, I want to give benefit of doubt that lots of teachers slowly started doing things for money. And that was the time a religion, a certain religion called Marxism, they started taking advantage of this. In 70s, around 70s, after the emergency, or during the emergency, when the weak government wanted support, so the major support came from communists and Marxists, and in exchange they said, give us culture and education. And the government of that time was not foresighted, they couldn't understand, or maybe they understood, I don't know. For some reason, India's education and culture and cultural narrative, two arms of a society which create the grand narrative for any country or any society, they were fully hijacked or outsourced to these people. I am not saying that I am against communism, I am against Marxism, those are my personal views. In this forum, I don't want to express them, I just want to take you through some factual developments, what happened in this country. So, Marxism and communism, the so-called communism, Marxism in this country, did not emerge from the roots of this country. Any 2 or 3 or 4 political parties, lots of political parties you like or you don't like, but their ethos, their entire thought system, belief system, value system, somewhere or the other you will find is very Indian, it has come from there. Some leaders you may not like. Some people you may find doing a lot of casteist politics, some people may do very identity politics, some will do very religious communal politics, but still you will find that they understand basically the India and Indian ethos. But these people, this entire philosophy, ideology was alien to India. It somehow did not match Indian DNA. It's like when there is a liver transplant and sometimes you get the wrong blood type or something, it doesn't fit your body and after some time the patient has a problem. Same thing happened here. Now the entire Western, and Marxism is a very Western philosophy, good, it's not bad, there are some great things, but not good for India, that's all I want to say at this point of time. Their entire perspective, the worldview is about, they divide the entire world into 2 categories, only 2 categories, East and West. Oppressors and oppressed, rich and poor, man and woman, not a family. Man, woman make a family, they don't talk about that. Even in a family, they divide man versus woman. So their worldview was, because those were the circumstances when Karl Marx perhaps had grown up or the situation there. But in India, we are one of the ancient, in fact we are the most ancient civilization and the only living, surviving, thriving civilization. We have evolved with observation and not academic theories. Also, the entire journey of experimentation, experience, learn, wisdom, this entire journey has been passed on from generations to generations to generations. The basic difference was that the West is very catalog society. They catalog everything. Everything has to be written. Unless and until it's written, unless you have an evidence, they say it does not exist. One example I'll give you, very simple example. I'm a very pro-science person. A disclaimer I'm giving you. I'm a very, very pro-science person. But despite that, my observation is the entire medical science, the allopathic medical science, which all of us need, is based on dissecting dead bodies. It evolved by dissecting dead bodies. Whereas our knowledge about yoga or about Ayurveda or how many nerves are in the body, what happens, the vata and the acidity, cough and all those things, everything evolved by observing living bodies. There's a difference. And why I'm giving you this perspective, because this is a new perspective you'll understand. I always say, the difference between East and West is, or East when I say majorly because all the knowledge system started from India and then traveled all over the world on the eastern side, that it's like it says that when I didn't know anything about the life, trees were trees, rivers were rivers, mountains were mountains. But when I started reading about life, trees were not trees, mountains were not mountains, and rivers were not rivers. This is where the West has evolved till this second stage. And therefore, they are still trying to understand that river is actually water. The girl I love is 72.8% water. But we are into the third stage. What is the first stage? That when I didn't know anything about life or whatever you want to say, you can say, rivers were rivers, trees were trees, mountains were mountains. When I started researching, experimenting and learning about life, then rivers were not rivers, trees were not trees and mountains were not mountains. Where are we in the third stage? When I understood life, then trees were trees, rivers were rivers and mountains were mountains. This is the fundamental difference. Now, after independence, or say mostly after 70s, the middle class's ambition became that my children should become doctors and engineers. And now that they should study and go and join Google or something, now it's going to be difficult. $100,000 is going to cost you. So, but everybody who joins IIT or any engineering college or any higher studies basically comes with this baggage of parents' ambition that you should leave India and go to US. That is the collective ambition, whether you like it or not. People who cannot go still keep trying, keep still regretting, "Arey yaar, hum nahi ja paaye." Please don't go. My advice, I went to Harvard and I travel a lot to US. My advice is don't go there. अगर कोई श्राप है तो अमेरिका में जाकर नौकरी करना. So what happened was that the first thing they started doing was how do you weaken a system? If you want to destabilize something, weaken a system, weaken a family, weaken a friendship, weaken a marriage, create a doubt. The first thing you do is create a doubt and open it to debate. The moment you open anything to debate, that system, that structure is going to weaken, that narrative is going to get diluted. And which is why there are two religions in the world that don't allow any kind of debate around them. One is Islam and second is communism, Marxism. No debate, no doubts. ऐसा है, ऐसा है. You can't say anything about my book, you cannot say anything about my God, you cannot say anything about my religious place, you cannot question anything, you can't say this is a social evil. You cannot. Even if something has become redundant, if you do it, you'll be killed or you'll be cancelled or there'll be some kind of attack on you, you'll get demoralized. We are a society of Shastrarth. We gave birth to a concept, a science called Shastrarth. Shankaracharya and Mandan Mishra, you must have heard. We are open to dialogue. And you will find slowly any system which is open to doubt and debate ultimately gets confused itself. And that's why most of the civilizations perished. And all the civilizations, Aztec, Iranian, Mongol, Egyptian, any civilization, Roman, ultimately perished. We have survived for some reasons. We survived because we were a basically knowledge-based system. That's why we have survived. But that's what they were scared of. Why did Mughals came here? Why did Britishers came here? Why Alexander wanted to come here? Of course, money and all. But they wanted to come here because there was a knowledge system here. Everybody wants their share on somebody else's knowledge. And slowly they started making dents into it, cracks into it, and therefore the entire young generation which grew up in India from 70s until now doubted its own society, doubted their parents' value systems. They doubted everything in this country. Without understanding what was the reason. And they were promised freedom from the known. Freedom from the known is a very good concept, provided there is also a model available or a formula available to get into the unknown, to understand the unknown. What was the unknown? Nobody knows. And that's why you will see this Free Kashmir campaign, which ran for almost now 25, started in 80s, and so it ran for almost 40 years until my film came. I don't want to take too much of credit, but it is true. Somebody has researched, sent me a paper that before the release of the Kashmir Files, there used to be Free Kashmir campaigns and debates in most of the campuses, not only in India, in most of the campuses all over the world. After this film, in India at least, there has been no debate or dialogue on this issue called Free Kashmir. I got an invitation from Oxford Debating Society last year, and which is the most prestigious debating society in the entire world, where from Gandhi to Mandela to Benazir Bhutto to all the top Einsteins, and everybody has participated. So they invited me, and I became the first person in the history of Oxford Debating Society who refused to go there openly. I sent an open letter to them because the subject of that debate started with independence of Kashmir. So anyway, so they started making us doubt our social structure, our value system, our family system, our parents, and a generation grew up thinking that everything Indian is wrong, is not good. And since then I have observed that there has been a very strong divide in the society which has been growing. And who gets advantage of this? People who do communal politics, people who do casteist politics. And that's why I made a film called Buddha in a Traffic Jam. I was making commercially successful, big multi-starrer, good songs, great songs. You would know Halka Halka Sa Ye Nasha, Billo Rani and all those big songs, Chocolate Gold, all those films I was making vulgar money. But then I decided to quit, and I said, now if this is my craft, this is my art, I am going to use it to tell uncomfortable truths. I am going to use my craft, my art to tell stories which everybody is scared to tell. Buddha in a Traffic Jam I made in collaboration with the students of Indian School of Business in Hyderabad. I am sure all of you know about ISB. It was made for very, very small amount, 75 lakhs, got stuck for almost 6 years. I made it in 2010. So lots of people who say that I started making in 2014 absolutely have no idea. In 2010 we made that film. It released in 2016. And it was a prophetic film Because whatever we showed in that film in 2010 when we shot it actually happened in JNU in 2016. And that's why, and before even that happened, I started showing it in universities. Then I was attacked, assaulted and cancelled in lots of places. In Jadavpur they broke my shoulder also. They attacked me physically. But that was the time anybody would have given up. But in 2012, we announced a trilogy. Very few directors in the world have made trilogies. In India, the only one director, Satyajit Ray, has made it. Mani Ratnam has also made it. Rosa, Dilse and Bombay. But that was not announced, it just happened. I announced in 2012, and I'll tell you the story why I made this trilogy. I'm not here to give you a lecture about my films, but I want to tell you some deep thoughts which generally I don't share in public forums. So it was in a government office, I was sitting there and I was angry, some income tax issue was going on, and files after files they were talking about ye file nahi, wo file nahi. Whoever was coming to meet the officer there was talking about file. वो भी file की बात कर रहा था, लोग भी file. तो there was some old guy who was there with his wife and he was saying, sir, इतनी बार आए, इतनी बार हमारी file क्यों नहीं मिल रही है, all that. And I grew up in government atmosphere, so I knew कि फाइल दबा दी जाती हैं, जला दी जाती हैं, गायब कर दी जाती हैं. आपकी फाइल पे कुछ गलत लिख दो तो आपका प्रमोशन रुक जाता है, आप डिमोट हो जाते हैं, ट्रांसफ़र करा दिया जाता है. फाइल्स की अदला बदली हिंदुस्तान में होती आई है. फाइल का मतलब है कोई सीक्रेट है जिसको छुपा दिया जाता है, फिर वो सीक्रेट बन जाता है. नोबडी डेयर्स क्वेश्चन इट. पर सामने बिहाइंड दैट ऑफिसर देयर वाज इंडियाज एम्बलम. People who have heard me on social media would know, I always talk about it. So I was looking at this and I said, why India chose these 3 lions? Why? और कुछ क्यों नहीं चुन लिया? मोर चुन लेते, कमल चुन लेते, कुछ भी चुन सकते थे, खेत खलियान की कोई चीज चुन लेते. ये 3 शेर क्यों हमने उठाए? And अगर ये 3 शेर उठाएं, then what do they represent? Somebody must have thought. You don't just put any emblem. लोग अपने शादी के कार्ड में कुछ छापने के लिए आजकल तो एक साल मैंने सुना है वेडिंग कार्ड्स का चलता रहता है, उसके लिए लोग परेशान रहते हैं अपने विजिटिंग कार्ड में. तो ये 3 एम्बलम एक कंट्री को क्यों हमने चुने? तो आई सेड चलो, इफ देयर इज नो आंसर अवेलेबल, हैं हालांकि, बट दोज आर वेरी रोमांटिक फिलोसॉफिकल आइडियाज. But what is the practical reason? So I'm a storyteller. So in my mind, I concocted some theory. And my theory was, so I went backwards and like a hypothesis, I said, okay, what are the 3 things which we require to run a democracy? How does a democracy become successful or a real democracy? So you need 3 pillars for that. The first pillar is truth. This is the first part of the formula, because if there is no truth, there cannot be any justice. So right to truth is the first fundamental principle of a democracy. So the first lion is going to protect right to truth, and the second lion is going to protect right to justice. So once you have truth, you have got justice. But why do you need justice? So that you can lead a dignified life. There is a value of life, there is a dignity of life, and you have a right to live. Because if there is no justice, you have no right to life. Anybody will pick you up, make you your slave. कोई आके कोड़े मार देगा, कोई फांसी पे लटका देगा, कोई आपके घर की बेटी को उठा के ले जाएगा, because you have no right to life. To ensure that we live peacefully with dignity, and also there is a value and meaning of life, you need justice, and for justice you need truth. So I said, I will make film on these 3 issues. And I announced a trilogy in 2012. And the first film we made was called the Tashkent Files. The idea was, I said, if you want to create awareness about these things, because ultimately whose responsibility is it that our country succeeds? It's us. So we have to remind the society that we must have right to truth. So we raised the issue of Lal Bahadur Shastri, our second Prime Minister. And that film, I won't get into detail. The reason I picked up these bold subjects was because that makes you think, if we don't know the truth about India's second Prime Minister's death, then what if something happens to me or my father or my uncle in a foreign land? I will never get to know his truth. So when I made that film, everybody in Bollywood said that nothing can be done to this film because there are too many dialogues, and second thing, main reason they said, because no youth won't see this film and women won't see it. I said, why? They said, who is interested in a 4 feet man, who doesn't even look good? It's another thing if I had made a 5.5 feet tall man with a red rose here, perhaps would have attracted more people. And then they said there are 9 old people sitting, just dialogue in this film, nothing else, no song, no comedy, no action, nothing. In one room, 9, 10 people are sitting and discussing about Lal Bahadur Shastri's death. No young person is going to watch it. But I was convinced. I said, this is why they are going to watch it, because they don't know. On one hand, Bollywood has given up total hope as far as Indian youth is concerned. I have a lot of hope and I have belief. Don't let me down in the future. And when the film came after a lot of struggle, after 3 years of going nowhere, and it released in 175 screens approximately. Normally a big film releases in 5,000 to 7,000 screens, so you can imagine what happened there. And along with that film, all these big films came. Karan Johar's Kalam came, and Student of the Year came, and that superhero film, which one is that? That Hollywood film, the biggest franchise. So lots of big, huge films came. All of them came, ran, got out. We kept running. Most of them bombed actually. Kalank and all bombed. Our film kept growing in so many cities and theatres. It was taken out, then with public demand it came again into theatres. It ran for 120 days when Bollywood films generally do not do a run after 1 or 2 weeks. 120 days. And when we checked Book My Show data, you won't believe it, 70% of the audience consisted of young people and women of India. And the third thing which everybody said, there are too many dialogues in this film and there is no story and screenplay. That film got National Award for Best Screenplay and Dialogue. After that, so that was right to truth. And one more thing I'll tell you, the impact of cinema or your art or whatever you are good at, your expertise, the impact, what it can do in the society. Until 2019, when this film came, Prime Minister of India, obviously Narendra Modi ji, he created a custom on 2nd of October that he would go to Gandhi's Smarak first and tweet around 7 o'clock or something, early first thing in the morning. And that tweet will get like tens of thousands of retweets. And then after 1 or 2 hours, he would go to Shastri's Smarak also, because it was important on 2nd October. And he will tweet that also. Very few 100, 200, 300 people would retweet that. And I had put it on social media, I wrote an article on it, so it's all factual. After 2019, that year, film came in March, April, that from that year onwards, when the Prime Minister tweets in the morning after coming from Gandhi's Smarak, the statistics has reversed. Now Shastri's tweet gets tens of thousands of retweets, whereas Gandhi's tweet gets just very nominal hygiene kind of standard retweets. After this, we took up the challenge of addressing the second lion of our emblem, which is right to justice. And we said, if the natives of Kashmir, people who actually protected and nurtured the knowledge system of India, if they haven't found justice in 35 years, then who am I and who are you? Okay, when you are politically aligned, we may appreciate or support a party, but when you are not aligned with a political party and when there is a real problem on you, tell me how many, raise your hands, how many of you are willing to go to a court to settle a problem? Almost none. Even when your check is bounced, you have done your hard work sincerely with all honesty, integrity and quality, and if your check bounces, most of the people try to find a third way out. Even your friends and family will say, अरे क्यों पढ़ते हो कोर्ट के चक्कर में, कुछ कर करा के उसको सॉर्ट आउट कर लो. आपके घर पे कोई कब्जा कर ले, आपका टेनेंट या कोई और, आप देखिएगा आपको बहुत साल तो ये सोचने में लग जाते हैं कोर्ट जाएं कि नहीं जाएं. So we said, let's raise this bold subject. Everybody said, मरोगे, ये मत बनाओ. But then, it's not that I have been making these films. These are getting made by me. I'm just the medium. There was some voice. People who don't believe in this kind of thing, you can just ignore this. But now with experience, I never believed in it until few years ago. But now with experience and realization, I feel sometimes you become the medium. You are born to do something. And it's not in your control. You just, whatever you try, it happens through you. So, we interviewed 700 survivors of Kashmir genocide, and ultimately we made that film, the Kashmir Files. I don't want to talk much about it. Same thing happened with that film. Nobody was willing to release it. People said, who's going to, no star, nothing. And such a sad film. I mean, it's such a tragic film. Who wants to watch it? People go for entertainment. And when that film came, it became the biggest blockbuster ever in the history of Indian cinema. But that's if commercial was the reason, then I would have been making with film stars a song and dance. That was, I mean, I don't have to prove it. I mean, if that was my intent, then I would have been making different kind of films. And there's no reason why I would be standing here and talking to you without taking money. So, no, if that was the intent. Because these days people even charge money for doing a tweet from the topmost star, the superstar of the millennium to even young celebrities. But I never do that. I never ever take money for these kind of things. But that's not important. Money is not important. Success is not important. 3 fatwas were issued in my name. That's why all this CRPF security. But after that film, the man who led this terrorist activity in Kashmir, who used to be invited in the Prime Minister's house for a cup of tea, who used to get youth icon from many media groups, who used to openly call himself modern Gandhi on television, and no journalist even once questioned him. And sorry, you may not like it, lots of right-wing journalists also never questioned that. Won't get into the politics of that. After the release of that film, that man was sent to the jail, and I think a couple of days ago he's also signed an affidavit accepting most of the things, Yasin Malik. Indian Air Force officers were attacked in broad daylight by Yasin Malik JKLF. Their case started, it was shut down because of lack of evidence or whatever the reason. After the release of the film, Jammu and Kashmir High Court on record took the cognizance of what we showed in the film, and suo moto they reopened that case. Kashmir Files was invited in US Capitol Hill, which is their parliament, British parliament, in Germany parliament, and many human rights organizations. But the biggest reward, the reason why I am making these films, risking my life, money, happiness, family, everything, is for this reward. I'll tell you. You have seen Kashmir Files, some of you? Okay, most of you, okay. There were two major events we had shown in them. First was BK Ganjus, where his wife was asked to eat the rice which was soaked with his own blood, BK Ganjus, in the beginning of the film, and in the end, Girja Tikku's case, where she was cut into two parts. After the film, I received two emails because the content was more or less the same, but I'll just tell you the one, paraphrasing it. So I got an email from Girja Tikku's brother, and he said, Vivekji, for last 30 years, nobody ever uttered Didi's name because it was so horrifying. We never ever spoke about her as if nothing ever happened. But when we could not resist and we ultimately decided to see the Kashmir Files, that night we came back and all of us, they were a huge family, all of us connected on Zoom. And most of the night we cried and spoke about Didi, and I want to thank you on the behalf of our family that now our family's healing has begun. A lot of people said it's propaganda, vulgar propaganda. Who are these people? These are the people who do not even want to acknowledge that anything happened. It's not that I was the first person who made film on Kashmir. Some of the topmost directors and stars have made films on Kashmir, Mission Kashmir, Rosa, Fiza, Fana, Heather, lots of films are made. And all these films are made in the context of 80s to 90s militancy and terrorism. What most of these films have done? They have glorified or justified emotionally terrorists and do not even mention the word Kashmiri Pandit or Hindu or anything else as if they never ever existed over there. Nobody got up, the intellectuals, including all the right-wing intellectuals, including all the right-wing media people. Not even one person stood up and said, sir, what kind of inhuman crime is this that you are not even mentioning the people who were killed in that terrorism? Who was being killed in that terrorism? Not the Muslims I'm not against Muslim, a disclaimer here, but not the people from the Muslim society. A lot of people say Muslims were also killed. Who are those Muslims who were killed? Who were supporting Indian government? People who were working in Akashwani, people who were working in central agencies, or people who stood up against it. Those people were killed. Nobody ever questioned these Bollywood films. Nobody called them propaganda. They were saying, I took money from a political party. My question is, who were they taking money from when they were justifying terrorists? Kashmir Files humbled us. And as you saw, I don't want to talk much about Bengal Files, but there are three questions which gave birth to the film Bengal Files. Number one, I used to ask students, now it's open so you would know, but when I was asking students in IM, in the topmost institutes of this country, humanities, STEM, wherever I went, I asked one question, tell me, which is the most persecuted and enslaved society in the history of humanity? Most of the people said Jews or blacks. But you can check whatever ChatGPT, whatever, wherever you want. We are the only society which was persecuted, enslaved for 1200 years non-stop. Non-stop. And not only that, our architecture was destroyed. Yes, temples, but let's call it our art. Statues were destroyed. Murtis were destroyed. Our literature was destroyed. Our social strata system, value systems were destroyed. And then until now it's happening. Then communists, like I said, 70s onward, they started creating a fake narrative about this country. And this is the reason we are such a tortured, such a defeated, such a demoralized society. This is the reason, if you travel, I have traveled the entire world. I'll give you one example, it's an eye-opener. What are the most common ways in which people address the other person in this country? How do we address the other person? Sahab, Malik, Bade Log, Sir, Boss, Chief. Every single person, even if you are a successful middle class person, you will call somebody boss or chief. Sir. Everybody says sir, 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 sir. The minute somebody else with little bit of authority comes in, our shoulders droop. On the other side, these feminists who talk about feminism, I also want, why don't they point out one thing in this country? In middle class India, when a girl turns 13 or 14, what's the first thing parents start telling her? Walk like this. थोड़े कंधे झुकाओ, थोड़ी शर्म करो. कोई घर में मेहमान आएगा हमेशा कहेंगे थोड़ा झुक के चलो. Which is why our girls walk like this. Girls all over the world walk like this. I feel sad about it. This is the kind of trauma. This is the kind of memories we have, that we feel like a defeated society. Which is why when we see a gora or somebody tall and this thing, we automatically, kitne bhi aap bade aadmi ho, we become like this. Look at when Indian presidents and prime ministers go and travel all over the world. Don't take it in today's context, but it's a generational problem. Or the CEOs or the India's #1 industrialist. When he goes and meets authorities outside of India, he's always smiling and shaking his head and this thing. Don't want to upset the other person. Why we don't want to upset the other person? Because if you upset, he will take your daughter away, or he will take your land away, or he will take something away, because you had no right to life for 1200 years. And that's why I said it's important to make this film on the right to life. Because there is no Jew you will find in the world, no Jew child you will find who doesn't know about Holocaust. You will not find any black person who doesn't know about slavery. You won't find any Rwandan child who doesn't know about the genocide of Rwanda. You won't find an Armenian child who doesn't know about the genocide of Armenia. You can never find a Japanese person who doesn't know about the atom bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But India, out of 140 crore people, you will find 139 crore people who do not know that we were the most persecuted and enslaved society in the history of humanity. Yet, the world doesn't look at us from the point of view of empathy or compassion. They expect us to behave like America, whereas Jews are given a clean chit. You can do anything, but you had Holocaust. I am not creating a hierarchy of Holocaust. I am trying to make you understand. Because we were not allowed to even acknowledge our generational trauma. We were not allowed. Why? Because of Marxism, because of communism, because of this fake Western secularism which Indian leaders introduced in India after the independence. That was the biggest mistake we ever made. Because the leadership of that time, they empowered the same narrative of the West. In the world, there are only two people, oppressors and oppressed. If you are in the majority, you are the oppressor. It was a ready-made formula. We introduced it through, I am not against secularism, but I am against the secularism which believes because Hindus are in majority and therefore they are the oppressors. We are not the oppressors. The oldest civilization was challenged and broken into two parts. The oldest civilization was broken into two parts. Who is guilty here? the majority or minority? In Kashmir, the natives of that place were killed, butchered and thrown out of that place. No Hindu lives in Kashmir unless and until he is doing a government job today. Who was the guilty party here? Majority or minority? And who was the victim here? India is an exception. It cannot be seen from the Western secularism or the communist point of view. India cannot be seen from the established human right glasses. India has to be seen from Indian point of view. We are a very unique country. We are the only society in the world where majority has been oppressed by minority faith systems in this country. For first 1,000 years by the Islamic faith system, which was minority, few thousand Mughals had come to India. And then by the Christian system for 200 years. Give me any parallel example where minority has ruled for 1200 years over majority. Give me one example. Therefore, we are exception. And that's why it was very important to make this film, The Bengal Files, for people to understand. Second thing was, there are great people in this world. You can be the greatest person. You can be really, really great person. But if you know about Peter's principle, you can be a great teacher of mathematics, the world's best teacher of mathematics. And because of that, you are made the principal of the college. Now you can fail as a principal. Right? Doesn't mean that you are a great person, that you have to be a great political leader also. A war was declared on India by Muslim League. And Jinnah's Muslim League said that what is a war? War happens to take somebody's land and resources. Right? So Jinnah said that we'll take a land away from you, I'll take your resources, we'll create our own country and we will use violence, which is direct action day and no Khali genocides. We'll use violence as our strategy. Gandhiji and Nehruji said that we will win this war, we will not let you win this war, we'll defeat you and our strategy would be Hindu-Muslim unity. This was the strategy of one general and the violence was the strategy of the other general in a war situation. Tell me who won the war and who lost the war? We lost the war. They took away our land. They took away our resources. They took away our demographic dividends. Takshila, which is our university, is in Pakistan now. India had 11 greatest ancient universities, 6 or 7 are in Bangladesh now. We lost. So those leaders were the losers. They lost the war. But we never ever discussed it. Why? Any prime minister or president who loses a war also loses his job. We celebrated them. They are great people, undoubtedly. Please do not misunderstand. And never ever have this kind of thing that you denounce a person 100%. People play roles. In certain role you may be a failure, in certain roles you may be good. Gandhi was a great social worker. Hats off to him, you just cannot take it away from him. Nehru was a great idea person, philosopher, writer. He has written a great book, great command over language. He was a good speaker. But as a leader, they failed. And not only then, after that, when China and India had a war situation, then again we were defeated. Second time we were defeated when Pakistan came and took part of Kashmir from us. Immediately after this thing. Then again in China, the same thing happened. We lost 3 wars under one leadership. But look at the resilience, look at the tolerance of this country. We did not even question that. Because it was very uncomfortable truth. I knew what I was doing when I was making the Bengal Files. I knew I am going to start a dialogue, a debate around one of the most uncomfortable truths of this country. And I know I will be cancelled, there will be problems, I will be bankrupt. I knew about, I signed up for it, and I am very happy to tell you, when this film, the Bengal Files, when it released, it was banned in Bengal. Nobody came in our support, and I am a bit sad also about it. The most powerful government in the center also did not stand up to fight for a film which is approved by their own constitution. Nobody got up and fought, but ultimately we ensured, and just last week I showed the film in National Library. That was my protest to a house full of people. This has become one of the most discussed, most debated film ever in the history of Indian cinema, and I'll tell you, by statistics, film is still running in its third week. Most of the films which came with this ran out of steam in the first 1.5 second week. This is into third week. I'll tell you why. Because social media these days has a tracking index. It says what is trending all over social media, on YouTube, on Twitter, and everywhere. This is trending in the most unprecedented way. All those people who never ever discussed Direct Action Day or Gopal Patha or issues of that time, today one of the most far left publications, historians, they are even sitting and doing podcasts on this or writing articles on this. There are editorials everywhere. Tomorrow when I go back to Bombay, Iran TV is coming to discuss this issue. And from Pakistan I have done 3-4 podcasts, not because I have any this thing, for the reason because those people were interested in knowing what was there. I thought this voice should go to Pakistan. So all kinds of things happening around it. The universe is conspiring to make things happen. And one thing I am very proud to tell you, something which political parties, all the political parties put together, all the intellectuals, media, historians couldn't do in last 78 years, one film did. Today everybody knows about Direct Action Day and Noah Khali and Gopal Patha. This was my journey so far in cinema. The reason I have been raising these historical issues, because I told you in the beginning that I wanted to counter this communist narrative. And through my art, I want to create a grand narrative about India. I want the world to know that if they want to understand us, they have to change their glasses. They have to look at us from a totally fresh approach, totally unknown approach. We are different, we are unique. There's a reason why we survived when everybody else perished. Thank you very much.